Good afternoon, everybody. Well, good evening now. My name is Isaiah Wright. I serve as the district liaison for NYACP and also the medical student committee liaison. This is our first program of the year, the medical student mentorship series, part one, the application cycle. I'm gonna turn that sound off in a few. Give me 1 second. Part one, the application cycle. I would like to thank all faculty and medical student committee members for participating in the planning of this event. Very excited and very interested to see what everyone has to say today. So, real quick, I know some people might not know exactly what NYACP is. Just wanted to give a few facts to everyone. We are the largest medical specialty organization in the state. We are working on advancing the specialty of internal medicine in New York State through education, advocacy, and quality improvement. And we represent over 12,000 internal medicine physicians. Some people ask, what's the benefit of joining NYCP? Do I get anything out of it? What can I gain from joining the organization? We have a few benefits that I've like kind of pinpointed right here: education, advocacy, resources, and community. Just gonna break these down like really briefly. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. For education, we offer online pain management course for users to earn 3 hours of CME training. In addition to poster competitions and also the MCSAP board review question of the week. For advocacy, we have updates on New York State legislation and regulations affecting physicians and patients. Resources that we have are updates on regulatory rules and requirements, and also updates on clinical reimbursement and documentation guidelines. For community, we ask that those interested join our multiple committees and task forces that we have available. We also have multiple mentoring opportunities available to our members and networking and community service events as well. Sorry about that. And also, I just wanted to add that for those interested, if you are a medical student, NYACP membership is free. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at iwrite@nyacp.org. Oh, sorry. All right, so just a few things real quick about the medical student committee. We have opportunities for networking, CV building, and authorship. I'm going to talk about one of the things you can get authorship through us a little bit later. It's a 12-month term, so you serve from May to April. You contribute to the identification, planning, and execution of programming to meet the needs of medical students. And we also offer a physician spotlight podcast. So if you have interest in maybe interviewing your mentor or another physician that you like look up to or kind of just want to have a conversation with, we offer that to the medical student committee members. Also tutorials. Like I said, there's a way for you to get authorship. Our tutorials is one of those ways. So tutorial, for those who are unaware, is just kind of like a instructional tutorial that is put on Twitter. So it kind of is in the name already, as self-explanatory. And lastly, we ask that medical student committee members share information about NYACP events with the other students at your institution. And also, you know, if they might be interested, you can tell them about the opportunities that they can have by being a member of the committee as well. So if you do have people who may be of interest of the medical student committee or NYACP membership in general, please feel free to send them my email or, you know, let them reach out to me. So I want to just introduce the faculty really quickly. Sorry. So first we have Dr. Vasandra Singh. She is also a fellow of the ACP. She's an NYACP counselor and the director of student electives at Mount Sinai West. Next, we have Evan Siao, Dr. Evan Siao, also a fellow of the ACP. He is the NYACP counselor at large and medical co-director at Mount Sinai Beth Israel. We have Dr. Michael Lucurcio, also a fellow He is the NYACP governor for the Manhattan region, and the clerkship director of medicine at NYU Grossman School of Medicine. Next, we have Dr. Todd Simon, another NYACP governor, and he is the chief academic officer at New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. And lastly, but not least, Dr. Nicholas Barbari, another fellow of the ACP, the Senior Associate Program Director at the NYU Grossman Long Island School of Medicine and Associate Professor of Medicine at the NYU Grossman Long Island School of Medicine. Sorry. Also want to give a quick shout out to the medical student facilitators, Kimberly Ho of Long Island School of Medicine, Amanda Greco of Long Island School of Medicine, and Zach Tenner, Long Island School of Medicine. So I will transition into the large panel session. I will allow Kimberly Ho, our medical student facilitator, to take over the floor at this time.
Hi guys, I'm Kim. I'm going to ask the first question. Before I do that, I just want to pitch in with, there's also another student, Sabrina Dowie from NYU Grossman Long Island School of Medicine. She couldn't be here today, but she was also part of this effort. So the first question, I'd like to give it over to Dr. Simon. It's, how does the rank list work?
All right. First of all, hi everybody. This is great. We have, I think, 36 participants. Fortunately or unfortunately, 32 of them are panelists, and no, that's not true. But really happy to be here. Thanks so much to Kim and all the other students who helped to arrange this. I'm, you know, this is such a great question, and we have a lot of really great questions today. So I know it's a lot to cover in the next 52 minutes or so. So I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to focus on what I think is really the most important concept of how the rank order list works. And for me, the most important concept of how the rank order list works is that it is absolutely skewed in your favor, right? The rank order list is constructed so that the students have, you know, the sort of the benefit of the doubt, or have the benefit over the programs. And I'm saying that as a person who's been a program director or associate program director for 20 years. So what's the conceptual result of that? The conceptual result of that is, please do not make the mistake, the single most common mistake that I have seen students make or tell me about, talk to me about, ask me about. Whatever you think the programs think of you is not the basis for making your rank order list. Where you think they're going to rank you, where you think how much they like or don't like you, what you think the programs are going to do, forget about it. Brooklyn, this is Brooklynese, right? Forget about it. Don't worry about that stuff. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, no matter what they say to you, no matter what the program directors say to you, the associate program directors say to you, the faculty who interview you say to you, it's very nice, thank you so much, and it's meaningless, right? It doesn't mean that they're going to rank you in a certain way. It doesn't mean that frankly, it doesn't even mean that they know. You know, there's going to be more students interviewing right after you, or the next day, or the next week, or a month later, and things change. The most important thing is not to worry about what the program's rank order list is going to look like, right? The rank order list works such that you should put down what you really want to do, where you want to be, where you feel good, where you have a good gestalt for the program, where you think you're going to fit in, where you're going to be comfortable, and let the chips fall where they may. And it will usually, and this is a statistical fact, it will usually work out in your favor, right? Most of the folks in the match are going to match to their top 3 to 5 choices, kind of regardless. So just worry about what you think. Don't worry about what the programs think.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. And then for Dr. Singh, anything to add to this question?
Sure. I think I agree with everything that Dr. Simon said. One thing to be very clear about is that the match favors the applicant, right? So the algorithm, the way the computer works, is that it's going through your list first, trying to match you to your priorities, not so much the program's list. That said, obviously, the program's got to have ranked you to match, right? So if a program fails to rank you, then even if they are your top choice, you're not going to match there. So that's one thing to remember. Another thing is, and I think this is something that people are always thinking about, is should you be signaling post-interview, right? You've interviewed, you had a great interview, you actually have the intention to go to that program. Is it kosher to tell them that you're intending to come? And so this is directly from NRMP, and I'll quote it as such. The violation is for either an applicant or a program to solicit information. That's the NRMP violation. But there is no violation to volunteer this information, right? So as I also serve as an associate program director for Morningside West, and it's very common for us, especially as we get closer to the ranking process, which is starting today. It's very common for us to receive these emails of, you're one of my top choices. And do we do something with it? Not necessarily. That said, if you truly think a program is one of your top 3 choices, it will not hurt to let them know, right? Another thing I should mention, and I'm guilty of those people, being one of those people who always talks about my kids, is when you put together your list, think about other things in your life, right? That process of putting together your list is not just affecting you, it's affecting your significant other. You may have a spouse. It's affecting your children, if you have children. It's affecting your parents, if you have elderly parents who need care. So think about all those things in your life. Consult those people, because obviously they don't get to rank, you get to rank. But consult those people as you compile your list. I think another thing that comes up all the time, and Dr. Simon mentioned this, is how long should your list be? So it should not be too short, to put it very bluntly, right? It should go beyond 5 easily. And to be succinct, you should rank every acceptable program. So if you went to a program and you interviewed and you said, I can see myself here, it's not my top choice, but I wouldn't be unhappy here, rank it, right? That said, if you went to a program and you said, good God, no way, right? Do not rank that program, because the match commitment is binding. Once you match to that program where you said, good God, you're committed to going there. And if you don't, you're in violation of the match. You cannot reapply for 3 years, right? So do not do not rank a program that you do not see yourself at. And yeah, I was doing the research before this meeting, and most people do, apparently, at least for internal medicine. This is not true for, we won't speak for other specialties, but they do match their top 3. So take a deep breath, or take 2. It's going to be okay.
That's a great segue. Thank you, Dr. Singh. To the next question, which we have prepared. Next question is, how can I maximize my chances of matching my first choice or the top 3? And I'm going to hand that to Dr. Xiao.
Thank you, Kimberly. I think this is a great question, and it really depends on who am I going to talk about this question to. Is it going to be a 4th year, a 3rd year, 2nd year perhaps, or 1st year who are here? I'm sure since you started your medical school, or even before for some, you've been thinking about this next step. It's an exciting step after your med school, right? And you have been maximizing the chances perhaps by preparing your application that you have submitted or you are going to submit later, because you've been putting it together, your clinical experience, your research experience. But, there are some stuff that you want to also prepare to kind of maximize your chances now, right? You want to make sure you get that letter of recommendations early on. You want to apply early. You want to prepare your personal statement. So overall, creating a strong application. But I think that's the first bucket. And the second bucket is really preparing for going through the interviews, right? Really being there, being who you are, showing the programs. I'm genuinely interested. You want to obviously maintain professionalism. You want to know and learn about the programs. You're meeting the faculty, you're meeting the residents, you're meeting the program directors, associate program directors. So it's really a great time for you to also learn about the program, and another way for you to also increase the chance of really matching into that program. But before all that too, I think what's important is really to also establish and find your community, your people, through networking, to what you're doing today here. You're joining one of your professional society event and workshops, because by establishing this connection with faculty, with residents, with fellow students, either through these workshops, conferences, professional gathering, ACP or non-ACP, you're really creating that kind of connection. And I'm mentioning this because in preparation for your application, for your interviews, perhaps you want to seek feedback from your advisor, from your mentors, because you want to get that external perspective. As I think Dr. Simon mentioned a little bit about this, like sometimes what you think the program would want to hear may not necessarily be it. So you may want to get that external perspective as well from someone you trust. Hopefully you have your advisor or your mentor who you can set aside a time and kind of go through everything that you want to go through, your applications, how prepared am I for the interview, how am I going to perform for the interview, and just general advice. So that's what I would add for this question.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Seale. I'm going to keep the conversation going with the next question, which is, what if I really can't decide between my second or third choice on my rank list? And I'd like to hear from Dr. LaCurcio.
Thank you. How is everyone doing tonight? I hope you're really learning as much as I am, and from my colleagues. And I looked at this question, and I'm not sure it really matters, between your second and third choice. What I want to state is that, echo what Dr. Simon said, there's no way to game this. You just put in the list the order in which you'd like to go. And then something that Dr. Singh said, make sure you go all the way down the list until you get to the place where, you know what, I would rather not match than be there. But you go down the list and just which ones you felt were the best match for you. I don't think it's that important for you to say how you would make that list, because it's so personal. When I have an individual mentee, right, and not a group like this, I really sit down and I say, what's important to you? What about your family? How do you learn? If you're really hands-on, is this program that spends all its time in the sim lab, is that really for you? So it's not one formula. You have to really know about who you are, know yourself, and with that information, just be honest. I really don't think I can go to that city or that town, and I'm going to put it lower on my rank list. Even if I have to do this subspecialty fellowship, I absolutely have to, and that's the key thing. That's what I'm going to do. That's the number one. Well, if that's number one and that's the only thing you're considering, take a look at that program's track record for placing their graduates into those types of fellowships. But I rarely do that when I have an individual mentee. I usually say, what's most important to you? Let's focus on that. And very often it's family, friends. Residency program, residency training is a stressful time. Make sure you have that safety net near you, especially if it's important to you.
Thank you, Dr. LaCurcio, especially for reviewing all those factors. And for anybody on this call who wants to talk a little bit more about the different kind of considerations when it comes to making a rank list. We'll continue that conversation in the breakout rooms. For the next question for Dr. Simon, what are special considerations in preparing your rank list for a couples match?
Yeah, thanks. You know what? I'm just going to take one moment for the last question because I completely agree with Michael with what Dr. Lacurcio said, and I would add that if you're having trouble deciding between your second and third, that's probably a really good thing, because it means that you would be quite comfortable and quite happy at either one of those programs. And now you're getting down to these little sort of fine, you know, this, that, and the other thing, which in fact, as Dr. Lacurcio said, probably doesn't matter very much. So, you know, I think I got roped into this question for the couples match because I did the couples match. I don't know if anybody on the call here is planning to go into the couples match. You know, it's a little difficult for me because what I remember about, you know, when I actually went into the couples match is that it's a pain in the you know what. You know, we have all this discussion about the regular rank order list, and now you have to sit down with another person and try to figure out these pairs of programs to put together. And so the first thing I would say is, you know, order out a nice dinner, or, you know, make something, you know, put some time aside, and one evening at home. I don't know. The vast majority of the time, you know, in my case and in many people that I've discussed this with, you're prioritizing geography, you know, with the couples match. What you're really essentially trying to do is to be in programs that are in the same, you know, geographic region, the same city, the same town, you know, someplace you can be together, live together, and be in that program. And so a lot of people I've heard get nervous about that because you feel like, am I prioritizing the wrong thing? You know, is that a bad thing? And the answer is no. And as in fact, as somebody was saying, I think Dr. Singh was saying earlier, I'm a big believer that you should really be thinking very carefully about all these other external factors, because the most important thing when you end up in a residency program is that you can thrive in that program. And the way you're going to thrive is by being in a place that you're comfortable, that you have a support system, that you have the people that you need, the ability to learn. The reality is that the little details between programs about whether they have, you know, this many conferences or that many faculty members make much less of a difference in your success and in your education than your ability to thrive in that program. So feel confident that if you're doing the couples match, that you're doing that because you're prioritizing things that are important. And that is that you're prioritizing your relationship, you're prioritizing your location. Those things are going to make it be more likely for you to be successful. And you know, and don't worry that's inappropriate. It's actually very appropriate. So I think that's kind of the main message. After that, you know, get a nice glass of wine.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. All right, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. So instead of talking about the match and rank lists, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda, who will ask questions about the specialty internal medicine broadly, as well as the application.
Thanks, Kim. This was Kim's idea, this event in general, starting this one specifically. So I do want to shout her out for bringing us all together today. So the first question is, how do I know if IM is the right specialty for me, especially if I'm still indecisive? So ideally, this is for people in a little bit of an earlier stage of medical school who may be on the call. And I'm directing this to Dr. Berbari.
Thanks, Amanda. And thanks to Isaiah and Kimberly and for putting, this is a great meeting. And I hope we have many more in the future. So I think like Dr. Simon was saying, you want to pick a specialty where you end up thriving, like during residency and during your career. So especially like in the pre-clinical years, in the first, second year, and during your clerkship year, you have a lot of opportunities to figure out if internal medicine is the field for you. So I always do top 5, top 10 lists. Everybody says Dr. B's top 5 list. So number 1 on my top 5 list for is I am the specialty for you is really to focus on your coursework and your clerkships. So whatever course or clerkship you're doing right now, focus on that because you're building your foundation of medical knowledge, and then eventually it's all going to fall into place. So it all falls into place. Focus on whichever clerkship or course you're on. Number 2 on my list is always ask a lot of questions. So whatever clerkship or rotation you're on, you have a great team around you of residents, students, faculty, nurses. So ask a lot of questions about how, not only about the subject matter, but about like life in that specialty in general. To me, number 3 is what made me go into internal medicine. Mentors, advisors, coaches. So you're going to find a person at your medical school who you truly connect with. And I could probably count mine on one hand, like 4 or 5 great mentors. So, follow up with those advisors and mentors to talk about the specialty internal medicine that you may be interested in. Again, ask a lot of questions. Number 4, there's a great resource, AAMC Career in Medicine. So if you log into AAMC, there's a lot of great questionnaires. Do you like procedures? Do you not like procedures? Do you want to be the quarterback or the point guard? Speaking about the Super Bowl. Do you want to do preventative medicine? So there's a lot of interest tests on AAMC CIM, which helps you like pick between 2 different specialties. Myself, I was between medicine and pediatrics, and sometimes it's not easy to come to your final choice. Those are some things. Yeah, find a good mentor, advisor, do some interest tests, read a lot about the subject matter. But again, delve deep into your clerkships and your coursework.
Thanks very much, Dr. B. And we're going to be breaking out into rooms in 5 minutes or so. So we wanted to get one last question in before we all split up. This one's for Dr. Simon, if you can answer it. I'm actually going to go to the next one because I actually find it more curious. But what does residency, what do program directors look for in a personal statement applying to?
Oh man, Zach, thank you so much for going to the personal statement question, because that's like my favorite topic. All right, I'm going to ask everybody a question. You don't have to actually answer it because you're probably all muted and whatever, but do you like ice cream? Do people like ice cream? Because that's the answer to this question. Yeah, people like ice cream, right? Do you like ice cream? Kim, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Super basic, probably vanilla.
Vanilla. Vanilla is the right answer, by the way. You didn't know that there was an actual right answer to that question. Yeah, but there is. Yeah, by the way, there's, people, when we get to the small groups, if we end up talking about interviews, all the people that tell you that there's no right or wrong answers, yeah, there are. There are right or wrong answers, especially in the interviews. We could talk about that later on. So the right answer was vanilla, right? Because what you're going for in a personal statement is a really nice, creamy, good quality vanilla ice cream. Not mint chip, not, Cherry Garcia, not something with a lot of, extra stuff thrown in, with the nuts and berries and marshmallows. It's not a Rocky Road. It's vanilla ice cream. So What do I mean by that? It's, you know, these personal statements, I haven't read a personal statement yet that gets somebody into residency. Doesn't exist, right? I've read thousands and thousands of personal statements. So I will tell people the statistics, and these are actually pretty close to real. If I read, and I'm going to use a number just based on my program, 400 personal statements, I'm just using that number in an interview season. I'm going to tell you that 395 of them are fine. They're great. Yeah, terrific, nice, good, vanilla, right? 395, that leaves 5, okay? 4 of them have caused me to throw the person's application away. Do not be one of those 4. 3 out of those 4, I'm throwing the application away because of English, because of grammar, because of, you know, sentence structure. Don't be one of those, you know, people. There's no reason for it. 1 out of those 4 that I threw away because the person writing it sounds psychotic. And that's a fun one, by the way. It only happens 1 or 2 times every interview season, but it's really fun. But don't be one of those people. So that leaves 1 out of 400. The 1 out of 400 is brilliant, right? The 1 out of 400 is the one that really, like, it's gripping, it's intense, it's meaningful, it makes you want to, it makes you cry. I mean, it's just so incredible that the first thing that I think is, oh my goodness, this person who wrote this should not be going into internal medicine. They should become a writer and get out of medicine entirely because they're clearly in the wrong profession. But I will probably offer them an interview if the rest of the application is okay. But notice that was 1 out of 400. It's really hard to do. And it's a fine line, by the way. You know, writing that brilliant personal statement, for every one of us that reads it and thinks it's brilliant, another one of us reads it and thinks this is weird. So really what you're going for is we're looking to see that it's good, that it's clear, that it's well written, that it tells us something more about yourself than we can see in the little paragraphs that you get on ERAS. You know, it's a little more descriptive, a little bit more personal. It adds something to your application, but it's otherwise fine.
I'll say we have time for about 2 more questions for the large panel. And then we have a poll for you guys to answer for us before you get on your way. So I'll turn it over to Kimberly. Maybe if you have 1 or 2 more questions that might want to be asked.
I don't have any more questions, but if any of the participants would like to unmute and ask anybody in this panel any questions, like, feel free to do so now.
Dr. Lucrecio, I don't know if you wouldn't mind continuing what you were saying about letters of recommendation.
Yeah, I was trashing vanilla ice cream actually in my and I was
I'm
saying
a mint chip guy
to
myself.
thine own self be true. And if you want, and I was talking a little bit about the match process, be true to thyself. And be yourself during the match process. You can't game it. And it is, some programs are looking for this and that, but has to be grammatically correct, of course. And I totally agree with Dr. Simon. But I was talking a little bit, I was asked by Patrice about how do you ask for a letter of recommendation? So, and I think I want to add to whom, like, who do you ask? Okay, so first, how do you ask? You ask someone you know well, who knows you, who can write a personal letter of recommendation. That's what it's for. You say, do you feel comfortable writing a strong letter of recommendation for my residency application process? And give them the space to say yes or no. You don't want to force someone to write a letter for you. And then if they do agree, say, I would very much like to share my personal statement and my CV in case you can, so that you can make the letter more personal. And that's the way to get, and then ask for feedback on both. So you're actually doing something for the ERAS application and you're getting feedback on it, and you haven't you can still finalize it and upload it to ERAS. The next part is always a week later follow up with, can I follow up? Would it help for you to meet with me? Just offer to meet with them or talk with them on the phone. Now, who do you ask? Do you ask the chairman of your department or your chief of medicine? Or it depends. I'd rather you ask people that know you well, that worked with you clinically. Someone who saw you really talk with patients and really gave you a good evaluation during the clerkships or your acting internship, because they're going to know you well enough to be able to recommend you. Because again, program directors, they're looking for problems. They don't want to hire someone who has a problem, and and they don't want to have someone who's kind of clunky clinically. So good, strong, this person was phenomenal at the bedside, really communicates well. That's what you really want to get across, at least in one or two of your letters.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lucurcio. Since you are in room 1, I'll allow the seniors who are in room 2 to have the floor. Anybody have a question for Dr. Barbari or Dr. Sial?
I was probably gonna just complete the answer to a question Scott brought up earlier in the breakout room. He asked if about opportunities to teach as during residency, and I was mentioning that it's great. It's great that you are already thinking about teaching as a resident, and I think that's one of the best quality of a successful resident, because, and it's also important for you because when you teach, I feel like you're able to actually learn better what you're sharing with others. You hold on to it longer, and generally there will be a lot of opportunities of teaching during residency. You'll be working with a lot of, and don't think that only medical students will be there for you to teach. A lot of times, you will teach from your senior residents a lot. So you're teaching your juniors, sometimes your fellow co-residents, and sometimes perhaps beyond that, you're teaching your patients, you're teaching your patients' family members when you're talking to them. Perhaps you'll be working with some other staff in the hospital, in the clinic, who are the NPs, PAs, and other staff, and they might have a question, and that might be your opportunity to teach as well. In terms of specifically for medical education, generally there will be also perhaps even for some programs a dedicated medical education track that you might want to look into, and that might give you also a little bit more of a structured curriculum in terms of how to become more involved in medical education, become more involved as a teacher during residency.
Thank you, Dr. Sial. And lastly, anybody who was in room 3, match day / SOAP, do you have a last question for Dr. Simon and Dr. Singh?
I know.
Oh, please,
Oh,
Dr.
sorry, Meryl. I was going to say Kim has invested time in creating her poll, so we can move on to that, but go ahead, Meryl.
Thank you. So just in writing letters of intent, even if you just pick one and say, hey, just do your top choice, what are you, I heard that you shouldn't just say, hey, you're my number one. It should be something like a really, like statements that just kind of express how interested you are. Like, what do you want to hear? It's weird. Don't do it.
Yeah, you know what, I agree with what was said earlier. I see, first of all, do I think it's necessary? No. Second of all, if you're going to do it, only your top choice.
Yes.
Period. Number 3, short, sweet, personal. People have asked me if, email is fine. Yes, of course, email is fine. It's really hard to screw this up, although I'm going to tell you the brief story, which is that one time in my life, it was a number of years ago, I got a thank you letter from somebody that was written in crayon on cardboard paper. They screwed it up, but but other than that, if you wanted, a line referencing, why I liked your program or something that we talked about in interview, that's fine. Why I want to be, in that particular place. But short, sweet, that's it.
Thank you. Handwritten and scanned and attached to an email
If-
or delivered?
I hope you're being
Thank you.
facetious, Meryl. No.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay.
Short and sweet. People don't have time. It should express and it should be done because it's like an executive letter that,
Right.
we didn't need it anyway, but if I'm moping it up, make it short. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Meryl. And once again, if you have a moment, would you please complete the poll that I sent out to everyone? Kim worked really hard on getting that for you guys today, so we could get some feedback. So it'd be greatly appreciated. We're about to wrap up. So I would like to thank everybody for joining the NYACP Medical Student Mentorship Series, Part 1. Be on the lookout. We will be announcing Part 2, a date for Part 2 soon. Hopefully you guys got something from this meeting and, can tell your peers, hey, they had a really good event, come out to the next one. So we'll be looking forward to hosting you, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Thursday night.